Hi everyone, it's Nicole and I have another layout using the March Scraptastic kit. This is the 20th layout using this kit and it took me an hour and 32 minutes to complete. And I have one more layout after this and then I am done with the March kit. And I am down to my scraps, and a lot of times when I'm down to my scraps, I do sort of I called it the mosaic background because I have some that are, triangles. But I usually, or a lot of times, I'll do a color block background and then I build on top of that. Well, I found the colors or the papers that were left in this kit totally did not go together. Like it was not nice at all. And I had one piece of cardstock left, which was this pinkish reddish background, which didn't go with any of the papers. Maybe the pink stars, it kind of went well with that, but for the most part I found the patterns did not go together at all. So then what I decided to do was I kind of wanted to build a background that would have some kind of texture. So I'm cutting some pieces, nothing is measured, I'm just trying to fill as much of that cardstock background as possible. Not all squares, some of them are triangles, kind of funny cut triangles and rectangles and squares, and then I'm going to glue everything down. And once everything is glued down, and I have to say I wish I just used my quick dry adhesive next time, and I only put a little bit without thinking. I should have used my Mod Podge and glued everything down to make sure that everything was glued on all four sides, right, nice and tight to the page. Because the next step I do to this, the pattern paper is going to buckle, and then I'm going to have to go back in and take my glue and glue it down so that it stops buckling, which I did manage. I did fix it, but it was an extra step that I really didn't have to do if I would have just done it correctly the first time. But for some reason, I didn't think of that. So I just use my quick dry adhesive. But if you're going to do something like this, I would use Mod Podge and glue it down. Or if you're going to use a quick dry adhesive, I would use it with a sponge brush and make sure that you get it to, pour some glue on it and then take your sponge brush and then really coat it and then put it down. But I think Mod Podge would solve a lot of problems, because then at the end I could have put, some Mod Podge on the bottom but also on top. So then it would have sealed it completely and there was no way that the gesso could have gotten underneath. So this page, like I said, it took me an hour and 32 minutes, but it was over quite a few days that I did it. And it probably a good thing because everything dried. There was a lot of steps in this that needed to dry a lot between steps. So I did this part, and then I'm going to put the gesso, and then I just left it for the next day. And then the next day I did the next step, and it only took like 10 minutes and I left it. And it was a perfect page to do while you're working, crazy hours, because it was things that needed to sit and kind of wait for the next step. So I'm just putting some scratch paper underneath and just to cover my surface. And then now I'm getting my gesso. And I have a big bottle of gesso because it's something that you can use a lot of. And I end up putting a few coats. I think maybe 2 coats. So I waited in between each coat and made sure that it was dry. Because basically I want the texture of the pattern paper, but I don't want the pattern paper because they don't coordinate whatsoever all together. And that's why I didn't mind covering it up, because there's a lot of texture in behind. And then you'll see the next step that I do, it really adds a lot of texture to the background and definition. So that's going to take a few minutes to do. And ever since I did my page for National Scrapbook Day, which was totally mixed media, it kind of brought back that sort of love of using my watercolors and gelatos, and now I have my new Neo Color pastels, and I'm just having a whole lot of fun getting messy with mixed media stuff. So I'm just using a regular paintbrush and I'm just covering the pattern paper. And see, this is where everything, all the papers are all buckling, and it was a pain. So I'm going to take a few minutes and I'm going to glue everything down. And a lot of it I did do off camera just because it did take quite a bit of time to get all those pattern papers glued down again. I'm taking my heat gun and drying it up because I want to put the second coat of gesso, and I end up putting the whole thing in. I don't know if you can see to the right there, I have some gesso and some wax paper, and I end up putting my pattern paper right in it. And the back of this layout is not pretty at all. It's kind of messy, but that's okay because once it's in the page protectors, you won't be able to tell. So I'm just showing you that I'm, drying it in between the layers. And then I'm just going to turn off the camera because it was kind of, boring because I've already done that. So I'm going to finish drying it up. And now you can barely see the pattern papers underneath, but in person, you can see the outline of each of the pattern paper. And I didn't put them so that they were touching each other. I left a gap in between. Now I'm using some masking fluid, and the one I got is from Demco, and it's for watercolor and ink, and it's also known as Frisket. And so I transferred some of this bottle, and I have some little bottles that have little tips on it so that you can squeeze it, and it's not too much of it comes out at one time, because the cover of this is like massive. It's just a regular bottle, so it would be impossible to use like that. So I got these little bottles with little nibs on it, or tips, not nibs, tips. And then you can squeeze it through. And what I'm doing is I'm going through all the pattern papers and all the different shapes, because remember, some of them had the chevron look, some of them had a triangle, some of them had squares, and I'm going around and I'm putting a line of that masking fluid around the pattern paper. Then that has to dry, and when that dries, it becomes like a rubber. And what it does, it keeps your watercolor within that confined box that you drew around whatever shape, if you want to make circles or triangles or lines or whatever you want to do. But it keeps your watercolor in that box or that shape that you created, and then so you can do more than one watercolor and it doesn't seep into the next. So that needs to dry though, and it takes a couple of hours. So again, that was something else that I just kind of took the time, did it, and then walked away and came back the next day. And this one is called, it says that it's white. So when it's finished, it has a white appearance. But I have to say, I had it on white paint, so I could barely see it. So then once it's dry, I'm going to show you a close-up here in a few seconds. So that's when it's wet, and then this is when it's dry. Now I'm going to take my Neo Color pastels and some watercolor brushes, and those watercolor brushes, I got them at Winners, and I think they were like $10 for a whole container of them. I think there was like 6, and it comes with a container that you can mix watercolors in there, so it's awesome. Now I'm choosing the colors that I want, and I'm choosing quite a few blues, some reds, some oranges, some yellows. I want this page to be very bright in color. And these Neo Color, to the pigment in them is so bright. You don't need to put a lot of the color. I don't know if you could tell, but it was basically just a few little squiggles. And I was able to color that whole square in or rectangle, and it's nice, vibrant colors. And I love that. So now I'm just going to take the colors and I'm going to color it in just quickly. And then I'm going to take my brush. And basically all you have to make sure is in between each color, just rinse out your brush. And I usually have a water bottle that I'll have a little bit left because I didn't, if I didn't finish my water bottle. And I just keep it in my room with the cover on. And then I just clean my brushes in between in that water bottle. I don't have a bathroom upstairs, so for me to keep going up and down the stairs is kind of a pain. So I always make sure that I have water bottles here next to me. So because of that masking fluid, I don't have to worry about my colors running into each other because that rubberized line that I put around each pattern paper is keeping the water within that confined shape, which is awesome. So again, I chose a few shades of blues, a couple of shades of orange, a couple of shades of red, some yellow, brown, and it's going to take me a few minutes to get that done. I just want to talk about the photo I'm going to use on this. On our trip to Quebec last year, it's a city that's not too far from where I live. It's about 2 hours, and it's like they're called big stops, and it's like a gas station, and there's a restaurant, and in front of this restaurant they have this canoe, and in the canoe they have a beaver and a moose, and the moose has like a Canadian flag around his neck. And it was right around the Canada Day weekend or day or whatever. July 1st is Canada Day. So I'd taken a picture of my daughter and my grandson in front of that canoe, and my grandson is kind of, standing in that in the canoe next to the moose. So I just thought it'd be a great page to do something about his heritage, and the big saying up here is, I am Canadian. So I'm going to do this page, and that's what the title is going to be. I am Canadian. And then, so basically, I'm going to make sure that there's a lot of red and white because that's the color of our flag. And it has a maple leaf, and I didn't have anything that was maple leaf as far as things in the kit. But I did have a badge that was red and white, and it had a star. So I thought, well, that's close enough. And so, I'm just going to use a bunch of arrows that came in the kit. Some chipboard arrows. So, okay, now I'm going to speed this up because it's a lot of the same thing. I'm just basically trying to match the colors so that, that one shade of blue that I have it at least in 3 spots, and the shade of orange that I have it in at least 3 spots, and across the page from each other. So it's, it's a lot of the same thing, so you don't need to see everything in slow motion. But it was a lot of fun. I really had a ton of fun doing this page. And because I don't want to cover a lot of this background, because it did take me quite a bit of time to get this background done, I am going to go kind of minimal, I guess, on the size of my clusters, and also on the size, of what I'm going to use to mat the photo, because I do want it the way, I'm just showing you, this is how you peel off the masking fluid once it's done. I did most of it off camera because it was kind of boring, but basically it's just like, like when you're ATG, when you need to take it off, it becomes kind of like that. You can just kind of roll it right off and just peel it off. And then it leaves a nice little white border around all the pieces too, so it's really, really neat. I even contemplated using maybe a paint or a marker, and then in black, and then outlining all the shapes, but I wanted to keep it light. I wanted to keep it bright the way it is. And I didn't want to, once you that's something that you can't take away. So I didn't want to wreck my page. I had worked so hard on getting the background done. I didn't want to wreck it. So I'm going to work on my title, and these are some daily flash from October afternoon that came in the kit, and it's the first time I use them, so it's a good thing. Or maybe it's the second time. I might have used them. Yes, it's the second time that I use them, I believe. Or maybe I use them on the next layout. I'm not really sure. The days are kind of blending together, but I didn't use them very much this month. Now there was a die cut that said important, because I think it's important for him to, know about his heritage. And basically I just took everything that was left in die cuts that was in red, and I wanted to use them on this page. I had 3 cameras left from Studio Calico in chipboard, and I used those up. Now I'm looking through my stickers to see what else I can use, and there was a red little heart, and I took the heart and I'm going to put it next to I Am Canadian. And then now I'm going to cut the outline of the heart, and I'm also going to use that on the layout. I'm going to put it inside one of the cameras so it looks like it's the camera lens, and I really like that. And then there was a little plus, and then I'm going to use that on the inside of another camera as the lens again. And then this washi tape is from my stash, and it's just kind of, it looks like airmail, and it's just red and white. And on the bottom, it does say to and from, but I just make sure that the way I glue it down on the page, that you don't see that part. You just see the top part, sort of the airmail. So it works out really good. I'm just going to lift it and put it up a little higher. And now I'm going to glue down that the photo. And what I did was I left a space on the side of the photo and on the bottom, but the way I placed it on the layout, you pretty much see every little thing of watercolor that I did. I might have covered up one that you don't see it, but most of it you see a little bit of it. So that worked out good. And then I put the chipboard arrows to the side. And now I want to use my dauber and do a couple of splats on the where I'm going to put my title. And then I also put one on the label, and that worked out cute. I really like that. I like that effect. It just kind of went with that whole watercolor messy look. So I like that. Now I'm going to glue down the title next to that splat. I just found it was just too much white, and I wanted to fill it up a little bit. And that was my reasoning for the splats. So I'm going to write out the word Canadian, and then I'm going to put the little heart next to it. At first, I think I'm going to put that little label next to it, but then I decide I'm going to put it to the left of it, and I'm going to kind of embellish right there, so that the 3 things of embellishment is sort of around the photo, or in a, not around the photo, but in a diagonal around the photo. If that makes any sense. There's one to the top right, and then another cluster where it says important, and then to the bottom left. I could have left it where it was, but I just, for some reason, I just liked it to the left. So in that cluster, I put a little tag that says, or a speech bubble that says click, 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 with a little chipboard camera and some enamel dots and some twine. At the top, I'm going to put some of that washi tape and that label, another camera, and the last flare that was in the kit. And I had bought some extra flares too, and I've used up all the flares. There's none left, which is good. And I'm going to end up putting some foam tape in behind that little heart, just so that it pops off the page a little bit. And I kind of made a boo-boo here. I started cutting through the chipboard camera, so I took it off, and then I cut it off, and then I'm going to glue the camera down, and I just kind of pushed it back together, and you can barely see that I kind of cut through it. And then I'm going to put that star And now I'm looking at my sticker sheet and seeing if there's anything else that I can stick on there. I'm going to use one of my Tri Plus fine liner, or maybe that's my Lumo color from Stedler. I couldn't find my black. It's probably around here somewhere. I just couldn't find it. And I'm going to outline around that white cardstock just because I want it to stick out more on the page. I found it was kind of fading into the page a little too much. Now I took out my red and white twine. I'm just going to ball it up and I'm going to put it in 3 different spots on the layout. So this is a good way to, use some scraps that really don't match. Like there's no way I could have done a layout with this. It just did not look good at all. Like I've done some pages in the past where I've used scraps from the whole layout, but I had more scraps left and I was able to either use the A or B side and I was able to make it work so it looked good, but these colors together just did not look good at all. I didn't like it at all. It was just, but this way I made it so that I use it as a sort of a pattern, that I could build my layers on it. And then I used my masking fluid and outlined it. And I really like the way it turned out. So now I'm using some Mr. Huey sprays. And I just kind of use the calico white, and I believe the red is Hot Diggity Dog. And I just added some splatters to a couple of areas of the layout, or 3 areas of the layout. And now I'm just drying it up because I find the white, if I don't dry it up, if I let it dry on its own, it becomes chalky. And then it comes off on my on the page protectors. Whew, I can't talk today. I'm trying to do these voiceovers before I take off for work. So this is going to go up today. Today is May 26th, but it's going to be late going up, probably around 2 o'clock in the morning, just because I have to leave in an hour, and I ended up sleeping the day away so that I'd be awake to go to work. So here are a few close-ups of each of the little clusters, and then I kind of showed you a close-up of what the watercolor looks like. And that's it. The page is done. So thanks for watching. Bye.